Before he could even crawl, he was already a refugee. Before he could speak, his family was on the run for their lives. And decades later, that same baby would become one of the most loved faces on the planet. This is the story of Pedro Pascal, and trust me, it is nothing like the Hollywood dream you're picturing. There's no lucky break, no overnight fame, just 2 brutal decades of rejection, heartbreak, and quiet survival before the world finally caught up to him. So, how does a boy who fled political danger in Chile end up being called the internet's favorite person? Stay with me, because this one is going to surprise you. And if stories like this are your thing, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's go back to the beginning. April 1975. A baby boy is born in Santiago, Chile. But Chile, at that moment, was not a safe place to be born into. The country was under the grip of a brutal dictatorship led by Augusto Pinochet, and Pedro's parents were actively standing against it. That kind of bravery came with real danger. So when Pedro was barely 9 months old, his family had to run for their lives. Think about that. A baby who couldn't even walk yet, caught in the middle of political chaos. His parents sought shelter at the Venezuelan embassy, hiding for months while waiting for a way out. They eventually landed in Denmark, then made their way to the United States. Before Pedro could speak his first words, he was already living the life of a refugee. Even growing up far from Chile, his parents never let him forget where he came from. Their home was filled with stories and traditions of the life they left behind. Pedro grew up with an older sister, Javiera, and 2 younger siblings, Nichols and Lux, who would later become an actress and a powerful voice for the transgender community. All of it made Pedro tough, adaptable, and gave him the emotional depth we now see in every role he plays. The family eventually settled in San Antonio, Texas. Pedro was a competitive swimmer there, until his family moved again, this time to Orange County, California, when he was 11. That's where he traded swimming pools for theater stages, enrolling at the Orange County School of the Arts. But that wasn't enough. He set his sights on New York City and got into NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, graduating in 1997, ready to take on the world. But what happens after you graduate with a dream and no roadmap to make it real? For Pedro, the answer was brutal. Years of auditions, constant rejection, tiny roles that barely paid the bills in shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Touched by an Angel, and Nipped Blue. Nothing that made him famous, just stepping stones. And stepping stones don't pay rent, so Pedro bartended in New York while chasing a dream that must have felt impossible at times. Then, in the middle of that struggle, life hit him even harder. In 1999, Pedro's mother, Vernica, passed away. If you've ever lost someone that close, you know it changes everything. Pedro wasn't just grieving, he felt completely lost. His career was going nowhere, and now the one person who believed in him most was gone. It broke him, so much that he changed his last name from Balmaceda to Pascal, his mother's maiden name, as a way of carrying her with him. But the grief didn't disappear. And on top of it, Pedro was dealing with something else a lot of people battle silently: anxiety. Not just nerves before an audition, but real, crippling anxiety, the kind that whispers you'll never make it. He's spoken openly about this over the years. It's strange to think about, isn't it? We see this confident, charming guy who seems to have it all figured out. But behind the scenes, he was fighting his own mind every single day. Mixed with years of rejection and self-doubt, there were times he genuinely thought about quitting. Somehow, he never did. After NYU, reality kept hitting hard. Audition after audition, rejection after rejection, the kind that makes you question your entire existence. At one point, he was auditioning for anything: television, commercials, theater, whatever would pay the bills. He even moved to Los Angeles hoping for better luck. It didn't come. No money, no stability, just an endless loop of auditions and side jobs. Then, after nearly 2 decades of fighting for a real break, he finally got one. Not a giant role, not a blockbuster lead, but enough to change everything. That role was Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. Even with limited screen time, Pedro stole every scene he was in. Magnetic, charming, dangerous, Fans and critics couldn't stop talking about him, and Hollywood finally started to notice. But one great role doesn't mean instant stardom. Next came Kingsman, The Golden Circle, then Narcos, where he played DA agent Javier P. with real intensity. The show was a hit, but Pedro was still somewhat on the sidelines. Respected, sure, a superstar? Not quite yet. Then came a galaxy far, far away. Disney Plus launched The Mandalorian, and Pedro was cast as Din Djarin, a lone bounty hunter. Here's the twist. For most of the show, his face is hidden behind a helmet. No facial expressions, no eye contact, just his voice and body language. And somehow, he made this masked, mostly silent character one of the most beloved figures in Star Wars history. Fans went wild. Memes flooded the internet. Pedro Pascal was suddenly everywhere. But he wasn't finished. In 2023, Pedro took on Joel Miller in HBO's The Last of Us. A broken man, a survivor, a father who had lost everything. Critics called his performance raw, heartbreaking, and completely real, the kind people describe as career-defining. And just like that, Pedro Pascal became Hollywood's go-to leading man. From Oberyn to Din Djarin to Joel, there's one thing Pedro has clearly mastered: balancing toughness with vulnerability. That's what makes him different. That's what makes him great. But here's something people don't often talk about. Even with all this success, Pedro has openly admitted to battling imposter syndrome. Years of rejection left deep seeds of self-doubt, even after fame arrived. So how did he cope? He leaned on a strong support system. His close friend, actress Sarah Paulson, stood by him during the hardest years, even sharing her own earnings just so he could eat. Can you imagine having a friend like that? He also turned to therapy and mindfulness, and found comfort in the friendships he built with co-stars along the way. He takes breaks from social media and spends real time with people he loves, small choices that keep him grounded while the whole world watches. And speaking of the world watching, have you ever wondered how an actor becomes the internet's favorite person? Fans started calling Pedro internet's daddy, especially after The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. It wasn't planned or calculated. It happened because people saw something real in him. His humor, his warmth, the way he reacts genuinely in interviews, laughing, dancing, completely unfiltered. Those spontaneous moments became gold mines for fans. Either way, one thing is certain. Pedro Pascal's story is the kind we don't forget. If this story moved you even a little, do us a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. We've got a lot more stories like this coming your way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.